when I joined this whole IG thing, I was kind of dismayed at what I was seeing. And I saw, I saw a lot of young ladies disrespecting themselves. I saw
Mm-hmm.
a lot of folks who claim to have all the answers trying to push their thoughts about how life should be and what success is on other people.
Welcome back to What's Up With You, everybody. Tonight we got my man Eugene Williams Jr., former child actor, educator, and so much more. Today's show is brought to you by the I Am Chels X store. Go to www.iamchelsxstore.com for inspirational apparel, merch, and more. The promo code right now is INSPIRED. You can put in all caps. I don't know if it's alphanumeric. If it doesn't, work, let me know. 10% off. And yeah, so that's what we're doing. Mr. Williams, welcome to the show, baby. What's up with you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So former child actor, administrator, educator, your father did some special stuff. Tell us in general, before we really get into it, tell us who you are.
There's so much to tell. I kind of like to say I've lived kind of a Forrest Gumpian life. So many wild experiences, so many different experiences. I started out as a child actor back at the age of about 4 or 5. Well, let me start from the very beginning. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I was born in Miami, Florida. I lived there until about the age of 3, then came to the DMV area all throughout my elementary and middle school years. My parents got divorced. I moved back to Miami for the 8th through 12th grade, went to college at Emory University. I got my bachelor's from there in Atlanta, Georgia. Then some years later, got my master's in education in 2000, I think it was in 7, at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia. But before all of that happened, during my childhood, I was a child actor, a professional child actor. You may not be old enough to remember it, sir, but I'm talking back in the mid 70s. So the very first Jell-O pudding commercial with Bill Cosby, you see the little black kid sitting there next to him giggling.
I looked that up.
Back in 75, the very first Fruit of the Loom back to school campaign for underwear, I was the original purple grape. Before there were purple grapes, there was me. I was the original one. Back in the late 70s, 80s, I was the first African-American child in a recurring role on a major soap opera, Search for Tomorrow. And you might not remember that, but I know Grandma and Granddad remembers all those shows. Did a summer stock musical, Broadway musical Shenandoah. Traveled all across the country doing that. Several commercials, Scope mouthwash, Johnson's baby powder, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Radio Shack, all kinds of different commercials, all kinds of different things. Starred as the kid who couldn't tap dance in the movie The Tap Dance Kid back in the 80s. So just a lot more than that. There's a lot of things like that. And then as I got older, I went ahead and I was the children's correspondent for a local television show over in the DC area for Channel 9 WSA called PM Magazine. I was the children's correspondent for PM Magazine for several years, and then went off to high school and college and all of that. Kind of got away from the business for a long time. And in the course of doing that, got my bachelor's degree. In the course of doing that, when I left Emory University, my father and I came together and we wrote several books. We wrote a book called Ground in the Word, where we took the 500 most commonly found SAT words and cross-referenced them with the words in the King James Version of the Bible, so students could learn about the Bible, learn about vocabulary at the same time. We wrote a book together called, it's a reading thing, help your child understand. My father is an educator. My late father, Dr. Eugene Williams Sr., he's an educator. He was a professor at Howard University for many years. He was an assistant principal at Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. for several years. He was the director of test prep improvement for the D.C. Public Schools back in the 80s. He was also the dean of Sojourner Douglas College in Baltimore for several years. So he has a real wide background and varied background in education. So we came together and wrote some books together. I also wrote a book, and this was before all these things came out with Dr. Cosby. I wrote a book called Why Bill Cosby Was Right, in which I had a kind of rebuttal to Dr. Michael Eric Dyson's book, Is Bill Cosby Lost His Mind? Because of what he was saying about African Americans in terms of their reactions to certain things. And I understood where Dr. Dyson was going with it, but I also thought that there was some credence to what Dr. Cosby was saying. And one of the things I talk about all the time is we have to listen to both sides of everything. We can't just afford to be on one side of anything. See the whole picture. I've always kind of lived my life that way. And let's see. After I wrote the books for a while, I got into education. I was an English teacher. I was a high school football coach. I'm currently a high school principal. Getting toward the end of my career. Retirement's on the horizon probably within the next 5 or 6 years, not sooner. But I'm very proud. I have a wife who's a former elementary school principal, and I have a daughter who just recently got a master's degree from Georgetown University in journalism. So I'm excited about all the great things that are happening in my life. So that's just the general. And there's more. And as we talk more, I can tell you more stories, apply more things. But that's in a nutshell who I am and what I'm about. And so, when I joined this whole IG thing, I was kind of dismayed at what I was seeing. And I saw a lot of young ladies disrespecting themselves. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks who claim to have all the answers, trying to push their thoughts about how life should be and what success is on other people. And I said, you know what? Everybody has their own journey. It's not our place to criticize anybody's journey as long as that journey is not hurting anybody else. And I wanted to spread that message, that basically whatever the social media influencers tell you, remember at the end of the day, you got to live your life. And if it works for you, it works.
Wow. That's a lot. So you have a really extensive background. You started working at an early age. So let me ask you this. Let's go back a little bit. Being a normie, we hear the stories of the child actors who have it really hard later on in life, or they have it kind of difficult. Being someone who was a child actor, do you understand why that is?
Absolutely, I understand why that is. First of all, a lot of that comes from the parents. I was lucky. I had very supportive parents, but my parents made it very clear to me at a young age, whenever you want to not do this anymore, or whenever you want to quit, you're welcome to do that, because we're not depending on you for our sustenance. Both my parents were educators and they've been making a solid living. And so, it wasn't a situation where they're just going to put you out there to do anything just to make money. My parents were very, very careful and diligent about the roles they allowed me to even try out for. I imagine if I had tried out for a lot of the roles that I was actually put up for, I probably would have had a longer career. But one of the things that I'm so proud about my parents in terms of what they were doing with that is just, whatever you do, son, you're going to represent Black people and represent the family appropriately and with respect and with dignity. And so I've kind of adapted that to all aspects of my life. And so I'm just very grateful that I had parents who kept me on the straight and narrow. I was a kid first. It always forced that you're doing the acting thing, but you're a little kid first, and you're going to develop like kids should develop, and we're going to guide you along the way. And so, I could have turned out like some folks do, but the choice between robbing liquor stores and becoming a high school principal, I chose high school principal.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Now, I will tell you, I was a good kid all throughout school, soVe never really had to go to this is my first time coming to the principal's office.
Oh man. I tell you, as a student, I was in the principal's office many times. So I've used many of my conversations that my principal used to lay on me in talking to our kids today. So I've seen it from both sides of the principal's desk.
Oh, okay, cool. Shout out to Moki May 15 from the Philippines. Welcome to the United States Instagram What's Up With You show. Something else I wanted to ask you, because I did a little research and you answered it. And I was going to ask you, were you the kid in the Bill Cosby Jell-O commercial? What was that experience like, being a kid and actually meeting, because Bill was like at the top of the mountain at that time. What was that like, being a kid meeting somebody like that?
At that time, it was an exciting time. I remember one story that just stands out in my mind. There were about 4 or 5 of us little kids sitting next to Dr. Cosby doing this commercial, and we were there all day long. And you would think just eating some pudding and laughing wouldn't take that long to do, but with little kids that are, kind of just all over the place, pretty much the entire day. Well, there was this one young man sitting next to me that just could not stop himself from laughing in between takes and was slowing things down. And I remember Dr. Cosby told him, "Look here, young man, if you keep laughing, I'm going to stuff this pudding right up your nose." And we all, parents were like, "What?" And all the kids like, "Oh, really?" And sure enough, the kid did something, and Dr. Cosby said, "Well," and put the pudding right in the boy's face. Now, the crazy thing about it was, people didn't know what to do. The rest of us on the stage as kids, we thought it was hilarious. But I can only imagine what parents and directors might have thought. But the little boy was so happy to even be in the same room as Dr. Cosby, he laughed it off and thought it was the greatest thing ever. So that's just the type of influence that he had back then on us. He could have said and done anything, and we would have gone along with it, because Bill Cosby with Fat Albert and Electric Company, and the Captain Kangaroo and all the things he was involved in at that time. He was the idol. He was that one back then.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about you wrote a book backing up Bill's views,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, what were his views at the time? Because I'm gonna, for the YouTube audience, I'm gonna plug the book below. If can we is it on Amazon? Can we still buy can we buy your book?
And Barnes and Noble and all those different places. So yeah, you should be able to. You just type in "why Bill Cosby was right," it comes up.
Cool. So my question is, what was Bill Cosby right about?
Well, I remember one of the things he was talking about was just basically how we as African Americans sometimes, not all of us, but certain ones of us, portray ourselves in certain ways. And then when we get reactions that we don't like, we get upset about it. And there are things that we know we could have done in the first place to either allay those reactions or change those reactions. Now, the negative reactions that we get aren't always fair and aren't always right. We know that. But we also know what triggers are out there. And so, yes, we can make the argument that we shouldn't have to worry about those things as African Americans. But if you've been black in America for more than 5 minutes, you know that there are certain triggers and there are certain mores and there are certain customs that are part of this country. And so if you want to avoid issues, conflicts, then you move accordingly. If those issues and conflicts are not a problem for you and you welcome them, then you move a different way. And that's okay too. But let's just not act like, we didn't know that, and how dare somebody think that's going to happen. We've all been around long enough to know that's what goes on.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna definitely get the book. I'm gonna put it in the description for the YouTube audience once I put the video on YouTube. So I'm looking forward to reading that, because that'll be an interesting read. Everything you're talking about still sounds very applicable today. Typically, I don't mention it. Maybe I do mention it from time to time. I'm a police officer. So
Okay.
I have 14 and a half years on, and so I see, which is all you're talking about, the self-accountability aspect of it. Like the reaction may.
So, man, because you know what? I'm telling you right now, growing up in Miami as a teenager, I wasn't the biggest fan of police officers, okay? But I can tell you, knowing some police officers now, in the position that I have as an educator, and some of the things that go on, it is a difficult job. I can't imagine some of the things that you all have to come up against every day, especially as African American law enforcement officers. I can imagine some of the ways you are torn in different directions. And so shout out to you. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they've been given. And so my only hope is that whether as an educator or as law enforcement, we're just trying to help people get better and get into a better position. And as long as our heart's in the right place, sometimes we'll make mistakes. Sometimes we'll say the wrong things. But if our heart's in the right place, at the end of the day, it all works out.
Yeah, I think what gets overlooked a lot of the times is the intent. I think sometimes we get caught up in protecting, and law enforcement, sometimes we get caught up in protecting, or the society gets caught up in protecting the rights of the person who is under arrest. But there's always a victim. For every crime, there's a victim on the other side of that. And it's, from a law enforcement perspective, my job is to protect the victim more than the suspect if I have to choose between the two. You know what I'm saying? So
I understand that. That's what your responsibility would be. And I think the biggest part about us and how we relate to each other as people, as races, as a nation, we don't do a good enough job at the entirety of it. We assume because it's what we're going through, as what we feel, that's the only thing that matters, and that's not always the case. That's not always true. Doesn't make the other person necessarily automatically right. Doesn't make us automatically wrong. But there are sides to things, and you can evaluate the whole of the situation before you jump out there and make a situation or a judgment on one particular person or part of the equation. I've always believed that.
I agree. In law enforcement, we call that the totality of the circumstances.
Right. And I think that the biggest issue is it's all about respect on both sides of that. One of the things that I constantly get into discussions with other African-American male friends of mine about is this new concept that I didn't grow up with. This whole thing where law enforcement comes up to you, asks your name, or asks you to ask some questions. I don't have to tell you anything. I don't have to tell you nothing. You can't ask me any questions. Granted, legally, yeah, brother, you're right. They can't ask you questions. But why are you responding in that way? Because if it was anybody else that didn't have a badge on, just came and say, "Hey, man, what's your name, bro? How you doing?" You tell him. But all of a sudden, because he's got a badge on, you got to play this role like, you can't talk to me. You can't deal with me. We're human beings. We can talk. The person can ask your name. Now, you have the right not to tell them. Absolutely. But even in not telling them, there's a way to do that. Sir, I just feel like I might, I don't know what your intentions are. And so at that point, I don't feel like telling you my name at this time. Not, man, I gotta tell you nothing. What you do? Oh, who's that for? I never understood who all that was for. What show they were putting on that for? I just never got it. But I'm old school, so I'm 53. So I know some of these young brothers out here look at me sideways with whatever. I just never understood that. People have the right to ask you questions, and you have the right not to answer them. But it's a way you can do that from both perspectives, in kindness and with intelligence.
I agree wholeheartedly. Let me ask you this. Now, you told me that your father had a hand in history with a particular song. Tell me about that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So about 3 or 4 years ago now, my father, late Dr. Eugene Williams Sr., was what I like to call a quiet radical. He wasn't out there always in the front marching and yelling about stuff, but he was always working behind the scenes trying to get different things to happen. And so he was retired at this point. And he called me one day and he said, "Junior, look, I noticed I'm watching this basketball game." He said, "I don't really watch basketball like that, but it's on the TV, so I'm watching it." He said, "I'm watching this basketball game, and I see that most of these players are African American." I said, "Yeah, Dad, the league is pretty much, about 75%, if not more, black." He said, and then on football, it's the same situation. I said, "Yeah, Dad, everybody knows that." He said, "But at the beginning of the game," he said, "they always sing the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner." He said, "In my mind, if you have all those African American men that have made that type of contribution to the sport, why don't we recognize them in a different way?" I'm not saying not do the Star Spangled Banner, but I think we should probably include Lift Every Voice and Sing too. I said, "Dad, Lift Every Voice and Sing, that's the Negro National Anthem." He said, I know what it is." He said, "But with this whole thing with the Kaepernick stuff and all this activism," he said, "I think these young black athletes out here need to know that there are people behind them and need to know that they're being recognized for what they're trying to do." So I said to him, "Well, okay, Dad, if that's what you want to do, what's your plan?" He said, "Well, I'm going to call some of these local basketball teams and colleges and see if they'll be willing to do it." So he called Every other day, he called the Washington Wizards. Called them and called them and called them. And if you know my father, well, if you knew my father, very persistent man. One of those guys that if he calls you so much and writes you so much, after a while, I say, let me go ahead and answer this phone because this guy stopped calling me. And he did. And he went on different radio shows, what he was trying to do, and he used his connections with local radio stations, WOL, and local news stations, TV stations, and was able to get the Wizards to do it before one of their games during Black History Month. So he said, well, if the Wizards are going to do it, we need to ask the other teams. So he started talking to the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors and the Miami Heat and the Brooklyn Nets. And before you know it, there were about 10 or 11 teams that during Black History Month or sometime during the season, were having Lift Every Voice and Sing sung before the game started, after the national anthem, but between the national anthem and the game, they did that. And they would have either local church groups come out and sing it or local singers would come out and sing it, young kids, young groups, whatever. And so it really began to take off. And then he started calling the colleges. And Georgetown did it. University of Maryland did it. University of Miami did it. Because he's a graduate of the University of Miami. He got his doctorate from the University of Miami. And so before you know it, there were about 10 or 15 or 20 colleges doing it. And so it was beginning to really take off. And then about 2 or 3 years in, I look up one day and I see Alicia Keys, on the kickoff game of the first game of the season, saying this, doing this. And I couldn't believe it. And at that point, my father was getting older and he was ill. And I called him. I said, Dad, do you see this? He said, yes, I see this. It's beautiful, man. I love it. Everything I was talking about has come to pass. But a lot of people like to act like that just came out of nowhere. And if you can Google it. You want to talk about the first person that put that out on the national stage? It was Dr. Eugene Williams Sr. If you Google his name and that song, you will see all the articles from all the papers and all the news stories across the nation talking about how he was the precursor and the one that kind of brought that movement about. So I'm very proud of him for that. I'm proud to come from somebody that had that type of foresight and had that type of effect on what we watch today, athletically anyway.
That is a great story because that's not anything that I would have ever known. And I think what it shows you is that how, when we talk about the history of different races of people, you hear about the main players. And what that story shows you is how being someone who isn't famous or a celebrity can have a very profound effect on the future moving forward.
You don't have to be, that's, I guess, even my bigger message. You don't have to be a big shot or have a big mouth or have a big platform to create change. You can motivate change in a variety of ways, and you might motivate change that you won't even see until years after you're gone from here, or that people won't even know about. But it's like the old saying, the old men who plant trees for to give shade to people who will never, the shade they'll never enjoy. It's what it's all about, and so that's why I'm trying to constantly tell people now when we're talking about the social media aspect, and everybody's on there telling you how to be a better person, how to be a stronger person, how to make more money, how to have a bigger house, how to have a better car, how to have a nice looking girlfriend. Hey man, you know what? Just care about people and care about yourself and do the right thing. That's the most alpha male thing you can do. All this other stuff, yelling and banging on tables, but I don't know who all that is for. I don't know what that has changed. And I know plenty of wealthy people because one of the things I can say about my story is I went to private schools coming up. Okay. So I know plenty of wealthy people, wealthy people. Wealth doesn't guarantee happiness. Wealth doesn't guarantee the fact that children respect their parents. I've seen wealthy kids say terrible things to their parents that poor kids would never even dream of saying or doing. I've seen people do some really great things who are not rich, and I've seen people who do some really bad things who had nothing but luxury growing up in their lives. It's not about that, and I think we need to stop pushing that message. We even do with our preachers. our preachers even talk about, and I'm a Christian, but our preachers alone were talking about, God wants you to be rich. God wants you to be prosperous. God wants you to be always. God wants you to be a good person. That's my belief. God wants you to treat others as you would have them treat you. God did not say anything about, how much money you had in your pocket. What kind of person are you? And so these are the messages we keep pushing out to folks, and that's why people are, in my mind, are upset and depressed and angry because they're waiting. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not him. I'm not her. I don't have these things. What do you have? Did you wake up this morning? Because some people didn't do it. Were you able to brush your teeth and comb your hair and put your clothes on and tie your own shoes? Some people wish they could do that. So what you need to do, I tell people, find out the things that you can do that are working in your life and find ways to increase those things instead of constantly talking about what ain't working. Because that doesn't take any intelligence to criticize or talk about what's wrong with your life. What it does is it takes real power to see where you are and see what do I have to do to get to appreciate where I am right now so I can get to that next place. So I'm rambling, but that's what I'm all about.
No, I always tell my guests, this is your show, not mine. I'm just the host.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think our happiness has become so attached to a number in a bank account?
Because we are constantly told that if we don't have certain things, that we're not worthy of certain respect. And we begin to believe that. And so what then happens is you have people who grow up with nothing that make decisions in the long run that don't benefit them simply to be able to say, I got this money. I think of all these athletes that come out of high school, right? They'll come out of college early. And they say, why did you do that? Well, because I had to make sure that I took care of my family. I took care of my parents, and I got this money. So I said, you left college early, or you left high school, never got a degree to do that. And what I say to them is, yes, there's a chance you could get injured, and you want to get the money while you can get it, but it doesn't happen to most people. Most folks can finish out the 4 years. And my thing is, you've been broke for 17 years. 2 more years will make that big a difference? You can't wait the other 4 to get that degree and then be the draft pick and get your mama all the things she wants, all the things you ever wanted to give her. But then if something happens, you don't have enough knowledge to know how to manage your money. And you depend on all these other people because you never got the education that it took to know that. Because you were just so anxious to go out there and get that money while you could. See, sometimes we get so desperate because of what we didn't have coming up. And I understand that type of logic. Because every person who's black in America, if they're not struggling, they have a cousin who is, or they came from somebody who did. There's not a lot of black royalty in America. We're just passed down through generation to generation. So we all know the story. But sometimes that desire for all the things you never had coming up makes you make bad decisions. And you haven't had these things for 17, 18 years. Wait just 4 more years. And then there's no rush to that, especially if you have the type of talent that's going to guarantee you that type of money and income down the line. And then the whole idea of, especially African American children, have been brainwashed into thinking that the only way so many of them can get to have the life they want is through athletics. I tell these kids all the time. I said, this whole thing, I want to be what do you want to be when you go? I want to be a pro football player. I want to be a pro basketball player. That's great. And if you can do it, have the talent to do it, you go for it. But you got to remember something. I think there's like 32 NFL teams, and they carry about 50 guys. So at any given time, there's only 1,500 people in the entire country that are playing NFL football. They have high schools with more kids than 1,500. Your chances of being a brain surgeon, a doctor, or a lawyer than you do of carrying the rock across the goal line. And I'm a football coach. I'm just saying we gotta think. We gotta think.
Let me ask you this. You probably know the answer to this. So if I'm on scholarship at a college and I get injured and my athletic career is over, do I get to stay on scholarship?
Not always. No, you don't. And listen, I get that part of it. I do get that part. I understand about not being able to stay on scholarship. I understand about the fact that, you know, money not being guaranteed, especially in college. I've always been a proponent of college players. They need to start getting some money for this, because these coaches are getting all this money. These players are the ones out there still risking their bodies and their lives. I get it. But all I'm saying is we just have to be a little more careful about this, because like I said, even if you didn't, let's say you didn't get injured and you went, there's still no guarantee once you get in the league that you're going to last more than most football players' careers are about 3 to 5 years. So now, okay, you left early, you got in the league, you played 5 years. You tore your ACL, something happened, somebody came up behind you that was better than you. And so now you're out there. You're not on anybody's team anymore. Do you have the education and the foundation that it takes to then do something else? Is football, basketball, that's all you know how to do? Because if it's all you know how to do, that money ain't going to last forever, especially if you didn't take the time to get the education to learn how to manage it. So at the end of the day, get the education. I know people say it's passe, and I know barbers that make more than teachers, and I know that, yeah, we know all that. Okay, fine, great. I still say get the education, because most of the folks that got us to where we needed to be in terms of the laws and the changes that were made in the country to get us to be viewed as equal, which we should have been all along, were people. They were pastors, they were teachers, they were doctors, they were those people. There's nothing wrong with being an athlete, especially athletes who contribute to their communities and help and move the needle forward in terms of social activism. I love those type of athletes. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with that type of money, you better have enough knowledge and wherewithal to know how to manage it, or at least know how to choose people who will manage it right for you.
Okay, so that's a good segue to tie in the entertainers and the athletes to the influencers of social media, because that's how I found you. I was just scrolling through the Explore page and I saw you posted a reel about how the influencers influence us as adults as well as children. So my question is this: why do we have such an attachment to these influencers and celebrities? And why do we, as specifically Black kids, most of us want to be ball players or entertainers or rappers? Why do you think that is?
Because we have learned, it's been a learned behavior that is the way to get respect. That is the way to get attention. That is the way to get the money that, we see other people making. Chris Rock tells a funny joke. He talks about his neighborhood in Alpine, New Jersey. And he says, in one house, there's Mary J. Blige, one of the great singers of all time. In another house, there's this athlete, one of the greatest athletes. I forget the name of the athlete, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. In one house, there's this another singer, another entertainer, another comedian, one of the greatest of his genre. All are Black. The white guy who lives on his block is a dentist. A dentist. What does that tell you? So, for example, we have to be all of these in our minds anyway. We have to be all of these great and big and fantastic things. We have to be almost superhuman to get the same type of respect and money and housing as a dentist would get from another group of people. And I'm not criticizing any other group. I'm just saying that's how we've been trained to think. And it's sad because, like I said, if we really, thought about it, we realized that our chances of being some of those other things, which can make, great amounts of money and sometimes generational wealth for your family, are better than being the athletes that we all want to be. It speaks. Why is it that we don't think we can be those things? How has it gotten into our heads that we don't have the intellect and the ability to be those things? And that's a narrative that's got to change. That's a narrative that's got to change. And so whatever I can do to help that along, I will. And so that's not for me to say, kids, if they want to be athletes, I'm going to shoot their dreams down. Hey, do it. But do you know how long it takes to become that? Do you know how much practice it takes? You know you have to be careful about what you put inside your body, what you eat, how often you work out, all of those things. If you can't commit to just simply coming to school every day and sitting down and listening to a teacher talk to you, what makes anybody think they can go and everyday hard work that takes to be one of the greatest? Whatever you do, it takes effort. It takes work, hard work, everyday persistence. And if you can't do the simple things, what makes you think you can do the big things?
So me and one of my coworkers, we talk almost every day. And what he said is, we have to do a better job of showing these kids that you can be something other than those things and do really well in life. And, you know, we sit around, he'd be like, yo, like, we police officers. He's like, you know, I went to Maryland for a semester. He'll use me as an example. He'd be like, cuz, like, you got a high school diploma. You make 6 figures. He was like, if we could show these kids the things that you've acquired, just having a police job, right? It's so many other things you can do. He's like, but we got to do a better job of showing them things other than the ball players and athletes. Like, yo, if you got the talent, do it. But most of y'all not gonna have the talent for that, or the drive. Like you say, you're not gonna have the drive to pull it off.
Well, that's the hard part, and so that's what I think. That's the great thing about folks like you. Things I'm trying to do. I think I'm sure other African American males are trying to do for our young people. Is that we've got to continue to work to change that narrative. Kids will be what they see. And the more successful doctors, lawyers, police officers, high school principals, business owners, entrepreneurs that they see, they'll begin to realize, oh, there's another avenue to that too. Now, what they also have to understand is too, though, that we live in a society that may be valuing the wrong things. See, now, you and I, no matter how hard we work, we will never get $50 million a year. I don't know, officer. The president only gets paid $200,000 a year. The president of the United States gets $200,000 a year. Okay? So the type of crazy money and palatial estates and the best cars and all this that they see, that makes it difficult. But if they think about something, if they're really paying attention, when you look at the athletes, most of them, despite the amount of money they make, you see more and more of them now, after their careers are over, getting jobs in the media, being TV announcers, being TV sports pundits. Okay? So obviously, they still need the money. They don't just fade into the sunset and just live rich and wealthy forever. These people still keep working, and it's a growing number of them. I would suspect maybe part of that is some of them still want to stay close to the game. Okay, great. But maybe part of that is some of them realize that after the agents and after the accountants and after you just spent $500,000 in the house for mom, and mom has never lived in anything more than an apartment most of the time you're growing up, and all of a sudden you got to give mom a $500,000 crib. So, and then your cousins want something, your buddies want something, your brothers want something, because hey, when you come up, we all come up, right? Then they find out about 3, 5, 10 years in, well, I better do something else. Let me go ahead and get on ESPN right quick. Let me go ahead and take these elocution lessons so I can learn how to speak, so I can be on these TV shows in the morning and talk about what I used to do for a living. You gotta look beyond everything. People People just go on the surface of what they see and never look beyond that. And that's also a downfall of a lot of folks.
Okay, Honey Wordsmith, my girl Steph, she said presidents get a lifetime payment and protection until death.
Absolutely, they ain't getting $50 million.
That's $50 million is a lot of money, man.
We got athletes getting 5 and 10 year contracts totaling $150, $200, $300 million. Now now you're right. The athletes don't get the lifetime protection. But they ain't getting that kind of money.
Yeah, that's true. Let me ask you this. How do we break the chains of our attachment to social media while still using it to our benefit, because there is revenue to be had? So how do we use it to our advantage instead of allowing it to use us?
Great question. First of all, realize it's a tool. That's what it is. Understand that. And realize that we have a lot of people out here who social media has become their job, has become their business. They're not doing anything else but that. And so we have some people out here in social media that they can put together a certain image through their pictures and through their speeches and through their reels that, oh, I'm successful, I'm doing this. Then you as the watcher, as the consumer, will say, oh, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. And some of them do. But many of them are just very good at promoting and marketing themselves. You think those pictures you see on Instagram, most of those people, you think that those are first shot pictures? They ain't. They get the perfect angle, the perfect this, the perfect that, the whole thing. I've seen it. I see people taking pictures. Oh, wait, no, wait a minute. Let me turn this ring light here. Oh, wait a minute. If you know it's a tool, then you can use it to your benefit. Just like you said, don't allow it to use you. Figure out, how to use it and how to monetize it. That's the thing. But we have a lot of folks here just watching, just thinking that these people just became had 500, 600 and 700 and a million followers just like that. No, you have to put out content every single day. You have to constantly have your face in front of people through either the reels or the entries or IG, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, all of those things on a daily basis, and keep putting your images on those people's timelines until eventually they begin to see more and more. And the more, so that's the thing about it. We are people that we're visual people. All people are visual. We go on what we see. The more we see you, we just assume, oh, he must be doing all this. We see him every day talking about it. It might not be the case. Might not be the case.
Have you seen the movie The Social Dilemma?
I have not.
You should watch it. I watched it once, and normally I have to watch movies or documentaries 2 or 3 times to truly to ingest it all. But they talk about how the social media companies set the algorithm up in a way to keep you getting the dopamine hit so that you keep coming back. Now, being someone who's a content creator, I have a podcast, I post the reels, I edit it for YouTube, I show my merch and all of that. I will specifically say to myself, okay, like when I got ready to write down my questions for you, I'll write 2 or 3 questions, and the next thing I know, I'm scrolling, and I'm like, oh, like I didn't even come here to use this thing.
A rabbit hole. You go down the rabbit hole, we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. We see one interesting speaker. Okay, I'm not going to. I hate to advertise other people, so I'm not trying to do it. But I'm saying to make a point. And if there's one particular person that I have an issue with, it's on social media, and I hope I don't start a beef on your because I'm not trying to use you for that. I'm not.
It's all good.
There's a guy named Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is supposedly this kickboxing alpha male, sunglass wearing, bald cut guy who has 5 or 6 different Lamborghinis and, you know, all these beautiful girlfriends and travels all over the world. And he constantly sitting on there telling men about, you know, what simps they are and what women want. And women want a warrior and an alpha male. And you can't, you know, women, if you, the nice guys, women, nice guys, they only respond to their DMs. And I'm just like, yo, dude. And there's literally hundreds of guys out there that like really worship at the altar of this cat. I'm just, first of all, I've never seen Andrew Tate on any MMA card. Okay, so all this kickboxing stuff and boxing, I don't know if it's true or not. He has a thing out there called Hustlers University, and people subscribe to it. And I guess they learn how to be stronger and better men and tougher men and men that can attract women. It's, why should I tell folks is, look, man, I'll use myself as an example. I'm a 53-year-old guy, former child actor, current high school principal, been married to one woman for 25 years. All my stuff is paid for. Not the biggest stuff, not the best stuff, but it's what I need. I've done the big house. I've done the big yard. Done all that. At the end of the day, live within your means, get what you need, and be happy with the people you are around. I have a 25-year-old daughter that calls me every day. That means I did something right. She doesn't live with me. She calls me, hey, Daddy, how you doing? Just checking on me. I'm not a perfect man. I wasn't a perfect father, but I did something right that my child wants to talk to me every day. I got a wife with me for 25 years. We're always happy-go-lucky, but we laugh with each other a lot more than we don't. And, you know, I make a good enough living to be able to go on trips when I want to be able to afford what I want to get. But I'm not rich or wealthy by any stretch of the imagination at all. Not even close. But
what?
I'm happy. And so what happens is people keep seeing all this stuff and they begin to believe that they can't be happy unless they have these other things. And my advice is, look at what you got right now. If it's working for you, if it's not working for you, do what you need to do to get to a level what's working for you. But if it's working for you, if you have people that you care about, people that love you, if you, like I say, if you have a place to lay your head every night, and it gives you peace, you're doing better than a whole lot of folks. You better stop following these social media influencers around here, keep telling you what you ain't got, and what you ain't doing, because it'll lead you down the primrose path. That's all I'm saying. You can always improve your life. If you want to do better and go farther and be better and earn more power to you. Everybody has the right to do that. Nobody should do that. But don't spend so much time lusting after what these other folks have, because number one, you don't know if they really got it like that, and number two, you don't know what they had to do to get
it. Have you ever seen that clip of Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan talking about the guy who wants to just spend the rest of his life on the beach? Have you ever seen that one?
I've seen parts of that one. Yeah. I've seen parts of that one. Yeah.
So what you were just saying, it made me think about it. Basically, you know, Jordan Peterson is like, you know, he's a psychologist or a therapist, and he's basically telling Joe Rogan about one of his clients. His clients are like, you know, I really just want to spend my life on the beach, you know, drinking alcohol. And he's like, that's not a life. He's like, you know, real life is how your wife greets you at the door when you come home from work.
It is.
You know what I'm saying?
It is. All that stuff you see, posing in bikinis in Dubai, or sitting at a party with these big stars. Yeah, those are like little snapshots of what goes on in your life. But the everyday is much more mundane than that. And if you can master the everyday and live with that, then okay, you know, good for you. But yeah, I mean, in that respect, and he's another person that I have watched on several occasions. Not as much as I see this other guy, because I don't know why he's always in my timeline. I gotta see what else I'm looking at. This one fool's in my timeline all the time. But no, Jordan Peterson, though, there are a lot of things that he says that I don't necessarily agree with. politically, but in terms of everyday living and what it takes to be a well-adjusted and balanced person, we probably agree more than we disagree on those issues.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Jordan has his highs and his lows. I try to take the things that I think are, good for me and leave everything else to whatever it is. Let me ask you this. How do you want the world to remember you?
I don't know if I want the world to remember me. The world doesn't know me.
Your world.
I want my daughter to remember that she had a father that supported her in everything she did, and I always tried to show her love. Didn't always tell her what she wanted to hear, but told her what she needed to know. I want a wife that knows that this man loved me for as long as we were together, and tried to do right by me in every conceivable way. I want colleagues to know this was a guy who cared about kids, cared about people. He wasn't perfect, but he tried to show folks a different way of doing things that was a positive way. I don't need for the world. See, and that's the thing. I guess it might be because of my youth and growing up and having had those experiences already. Being on TV, being in movies, being in commercials. I was at the age of 6. I was a feature story in Ebony magazine. It's the craziest thing. December 1976. Get the Ebony magazine issue. It's the issue with O.J. Simpson and his first wife and set of kids on the cover. How ironic is that? That's a whole other situation. But I was a featured article in that about young actors, black actors doing things on television and commercials. I had a story about like 10, 11 pages dedicated just to me. I've met Oprah Winfrey. I was on her show when she did a show called People Are Talking in Baltimore before she even came to Chicago. I've gone to school with popular folks. I don't know if you ever heard of Carlos Watson, who does OZ Media. Carlos Watson and I were in high school together. We played on the same high school football team. So, to me, all that stuff is just in those experiences. You realize I went to high school with Ed McCaffrey, his mother. I mean, the McCaffrey boy who plays for the Panthers. His mother and I went to high school together. So, like I said, I've had a Forrest Gumpian life. So I know people who have done well. I've seen all that. I'm at the stage of my life where I don't need to impress anybody anymore. Because we all put our pants on the same, one leg at a time. I see them in some people in their best moments, some of their worst moments. And so I don't need to be remembered by a lot of people. I just need to be remembered by the people who cared about me and loved me.
That's beautiful. Okay, so you probably don't know this because we just met. At the end of my show, everyone has to do this thing. It's called your top 5 dead or alive. So you tell me the top 5 people, dead or alive, real or fictional, that you would like to sit down and have like a one-on-one intimate conversation with. If you want to go into detail on each particular person, that's fine. Or if you just want to list them and let it be, that's fine too. Top 5 dead or alive.
Top 5 dead or alive.
Real or fictional?
Real or fictional? Well, it's cliche. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Cool.
Because you were a middle class pastor's son. You like what made you decide that you were going to take on the mantle of being the leader of a social revolution? Like what made you think that you were that dude? You were that one?
Like I'm him.
Really, I really asked him. I mean, he was a brilliant man, but how'd you get there, Dr. King? Like what made you want to get there? Be that person. Another person I'd like to meet, Cornel West. I just like hearing him talk. I like to hear him just riff on different jazz musicians and compare them to radical social activists, and I just like to hear that brother just talk. It's like jazz listening to him talk.
He's a good one. That's the first time anyone's ever said him.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Who else? I would like to talk to. Wow, this is a hard question, man.
Some people don't make it to 5. It's okay if you don't. It's all good. But I like to give people 5. Some people get to 5 and want 5 more. So it just depends.
Okay. I'd like to talk to Sidney Poitier.
Ooh, nobody has ever said him.
Sidney Poitier. I'd like to find out from him, what it was like being the first. Like, how did you maneuver through that? Being the first and somehow managing to be viewed as one of the greatest actors ever, black or white, even though you were especially in that time. That's 3. Number 4. KRS-One.
Oh, really? That's what's up.
If I hear him, he drops some stuff on me that I hadn't even considered, hadn't even thought about, and just the different angles he comes at certain issues with. I like him. And my final one will be Jalen Rose.
Really? Why Jalen Rose? The Hooper?
The Hooper. Because I look at where he began as a member of the Fab Five, and I see what he has become in sports media, and I'm proud of him.
Cool. I like Jalen Rose. I mean, I grew up. I was born in '82, so like the Fab Five. I still wear black socks because of them dudes.
Right.
That's pretty cool. Nobody's ever said him either. So that's what's up. All right. So I appreciate you sitting down with me. I've enjoyed the conversation. I always give my guests an opportunity to ask me a question since I've had the opportunity to pick your brain for the last hour. So if you have a question for me or something you want to ask me or talk to me about, this is your moment to do that.
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, before I ask you a question, I want to commend you on what you're doing. This is fantastic. This is a fantastic thing you're doing. I wish you all luck in the world. I know you are going to be. This is going to be something that's going to be major for you. This is going to. I'm predicting that now. This is going to go out. This whole effort that you're doing with your podcast, with your conversations, it's going to be something. It's going to be real big, real soon. I feel that about you. I guess my biggest question for you would be, I didn't know you were in law enforcement, and that's once again commendable. How do you, or did you? What are the things you have to tell yourself every day to get through the things that you face? And when I say that, whether it be seeing the situations that you happen to run up on in the course of your job, whether it be dealing with people's perceptions of your profession, especially because of what's been happening recently, how do you manage to keep your head up and keep the main thing? Because I know there's a lot of distractions from different directions in terms of what you do on a daily basis.
Wow, great question. So I'm married. I've been married for 7 years. We've been together for 17 years. I have 3 daughters, 19, 6, and soon to be 2. So
you spread them out.
Yeah.
That's a woo. Oh,
Started over.
you youngins.
Yeah. So being a family man. Now, when I became a police officer, I wasn't a family man. So it was more about just trying to become an established man. You know, um, being someone. I'll be 40 this year. Being someone who's a family man now. Um, knowing that I have like real humans like depending on me. That's what gives me the drive to say, "Oh no, I'm going home." So there's that aspect of it. Um, the difficult part in terms of the social things and some of the police killings, um, you just you ground yourself in your mind and your heart and knowing who you are and why it is that you do the things that you do and that you can't please everyone. So I'm here to do the things that need to be done for the people who need me most in that particular moment. And whoever doesn't like it can just dislike it at that particular time. Um, I've seen some things. So the way I deal with the traumas of being a police officer is that I'm big on acceptance, and I just accept that life is a lot more violent and brutal than most people ever perceive on a day-to-day basis. And you just accept that this is what reality is, and most people won't understand why you have the views and the perspectives that you have because they're not exposed to it on a day-to-day basis. I do have a therapist, Dr. Robert Evans III. That's my man. So I go talk to him every 2, 3 weeks, and we chop it up about different things. So that helps. And then just having one thing about being an officer that is really um, rewarding is that you have a brotherhood of people who walk this path with you, and it transcends gender, it transcends race, it transcends sexual orientation, it transcends all of these things that most of America argues about. And at the end of the day, I don't even have to like you, right? But we're on the same team, we're family. So if I got to do what I got to do to save you, then our brotherhood comes before everything that's happening outside of that. So that's kind of how I would quantify all of the things that I have to deal with as an officer.
No, I mean, hey, like I said, that's the thing that, once again, talking about the totality of things. That's what I think we don't always deal with. Um, it's very easy to get upset, as we should, when we see injustice happening, whether civilians doing it or police are doing it. But we also have to realize that, um, and it's hard to say it because I know people will be upset about this. Every story has context.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that doesn't excuse necessarily the actions that are taken, but every story has context.
Yeah, I mean, I was my last interview was with one of my former coworkers. He's a business owner now. He still works part time, but he'll be done with that, working part time soon. And I was telling him that one thing I try to do is we were talking about reparations, right? And we can come back for season 5. I'll have you back for that because I have a really great idea for reparations and I want your opinion, but I just don't want to do it right now because it'll take a whole nother hour. But my point is that I was telling him whenever if I'm a part of the situation and I stand to gain or lose, I always try to understand the opposite perspective to find out if I'm really rooted in my belief here. So I'm going to say, of course, I think I should get reparations because that's beneficial to me, right? But then I have to be willing to look at this other perspective and at least understand how their views come to be so that I can know that I'm rooted. Once I come to my belief, I'm rooted in this. I thought about this on both sides. And this is my belief instead of just saying, well, yeah, we should do this. Yeah, of course. I'm a black guy. Give me my 2 million or whatever. I'll take it. Right or wrong or indifferent.
Let me just say this because I know it's for no, but you brought up, but I gotta address this. Reparations. I agree with you. I think there should be a form of reparations. Here's my concern, though, about reparations. Let's say that next month the government signed an executive order and gave all of the descendants of African American slaves reparations. Let's say give every person, because here's what we know. First of all, when people say you can't afford reparations, we know that's not true. Because when we went into this pandemic crisis, money came out. People were getting money handed over fist with the government. So the government got the money. Let's keep that all the way above. Now let's get back to the point. Let's say they gave everybody, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. I don't know. I don't even know what the number would be. But I'm just gonna say a million. A million. Here's my question. Are African Americans prepared for what that means? And when I ask that, I mean this. First of all, you got your million. Now, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to invest it? Are you going to spend on some frivolous stuff? Are you going to buy 2,000 lottery tickets? What you going to do? Because eventually, you know that the reparations is going to have a finite number on it. Like, it's not just going to be reparations forever. They're going to say, here's your check. This is what you get. And once you get it, and it's all spent up, what do you think the responsibility of the government should be after that? Because they could very easily tell you, you want reparations? We gave it to you. So all this 400 years and this and that, we ain't trying to hear that no more. No, now you and I both know that's real though. The 400 years and the oppression, that's a real thing. We're not going to act like that's not a real thing. That does affect generationally how people act and operate. We are still in 2022, many of us operating our mindsets that developed in our families hundreds of years ago in terms of the manifestation of how we act and what we do and how we work towards each other. I get all of that. That's a whole other show you could do too. But once you get the reparations, yes, honey wordsmith, untaxed. Yes, untaxed. Once you get the reparations and all the money is spent, what's next? Are we as African Americans prepared for what's next? Are we as African Americans prepared for the fact that if some of us misspent it, or didn't invest it, or didn't put ourselves in a position for long-term growth and generational benefits, we can't say that no more after that.
Okay. So I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole just a little bit, and then we're gonna sign off.
I got nothing to do tonight. Let's go.
So, well, because Instagram will cut it off, and then I'll lose the feed.
Oh, my bad.
So I'll say this: I don't think most people are prepared to be given $1 million at one time and know what to do with it. So that's going to be bad for business in the long term. But I want you to entertain my idea for reparations.
Okay.
Because you're a scholar, you're in education. You can tell me your opinion, and then we'll sign off.
Okay.
This is my idea for reparations. I'm not saying that my idea is fair and is the fairest way to apply it based on the history of oppression. I think it's the most applicable, reasonable way for it to occur without it destroying the long-term financial status of people, like you said, to just give them the million, and it incentivizes. So this is my idea for reparations. My idea for reparations is that for the next 400 years, if you are a descendant of slaves, you don't pay any taxes. So you don't pay any income tax, you don't pay any property tax, you don't pay any state tax, you don't pay any corporate tax if you start a business. And so for the next 400 years, that's how you get your reparations. You get your, now it's a bit unfair because we're working, mind you, we're working for this. We're working to get our own reparations, but it's still a benefit now I'm not an economist, so I don't know, but in theory, it doesn't crash the economy. They can't make the argument and say, well, you know, we took $40 billion and gave it to you guys, then we wouldn't be able to operate. No, you don't get to say that, because I'm getting my reparations every 2 weeks when I go to work, and I get the $30,000, $35,000 paid in taxes last year instead of that going to Uncle Sam, who oppressed my ancestors. I get that money, right? What you think?
I like that. 400 years of no taxes?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And actually, that might be the most feasible and tenable solution, because you're right. It wouldn't destroy the economy, since supposedly we're only 13% of the population anyway. And per capita, we are receiving a higher percentage of assistance from the government anyway. Okay. Listen, one day when you president and I'm vice president, I'll give you the bill to sign off on that. It's a good deal. I'm with that. That can work. That can work, not because necessarily because it's the best idea, because I think that's the one they'd accept. I think they go for that. I think they might go for that.
Well, I always say, you know, I'm less concerned about whether I like the politician or not. I'm more concerned about what the politician can do. So I always say I would love to just sit down with, whether it was Barack when he was in office, Trump when he was in office, or Biden's. I don't know if he can cognitively, you know, pull it together now, but any of them who could do it. And, but I genuinely want to hear their opinions, and I want them to hear that and be like, you know what? Either give me a legitimate reason why it wouldn't work, or legitimately tell me why it could work. That's all I want to do, you know. So that's what I came up with. Like, yo, I could work my reparation.
Like I said, I think that works better, because it still holds people accountable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they talk about affirmative action and things like that, they say, well, you shouldn't need affirmative action because everything is fair now, this and that. And I say, wait a minute, time out. For literally centuries, African Americans were getting the short end of the stick just because of the color of their skin. Affirmative action should be in place at least as long as slavery was.
Ooh.
Then we can talk about some equity. But you can have one system in place for 300-400 years, and then have another system in place for 50 or 60, and be like, oh, now, like, nah, dude, that's the math doesn't work. The math just doesn't feel right on that. But that's my take on it.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me, Mr. Williams. It's so nice to meet you. I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm looking forward to the playback. I'll talk to you offline, but I want to get all of the information for all of the links for your books and anything else that we discussed. Even, you know, I found the YouTube with the Bill Cosby thing. I saw you sitting there. So that was cool. But
this guy.
Hey, I found it, man. I'm gonna put it. It's gonna be in there. So I love you, black man. I enjoyed conversing with you, and yeah, man. Let's come back again soon and pick another topic and do it all again. I love intellectual debate and conversation. So that's where we at.
So proud of you, man. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to talking to you again sometime in the near future.
My man. Y'all be good. Peace.